Okay, so this is where it gets a little bit more interesting. I've read through this email again, and as before, I've tried to make them quite comprehensive, so there's not really much to sort of explain other than for you to see me actually write the commands and sort of maybe a little bit of additional words or wording. But we'll go through it and we'll create our NGINX web server. So again, I'm not going to read all this. It's there for you to read and sort of understand. We're just going to go with this initial command, and as I say, NGINX is a web server. You can host websites in it, and that's what we do ultimately. But for now, we're just going to run this docker run command like here. So we've got docker run, and then we specify we use -p, and then we specify the ports, and then we say what image we want Docker to pull for us. So when you use docker run and you don't have the image locally, Docker will go out and look for the image for you without you having to use the pull command. So with that said, and then this -p part, so these ports, how I remember this is the first one on the left is your local port. So what you're doing is opening up a port in your firewall to allow the browser to run your website, so the web server. And then, so you remember with the left one is inside, like your local one, and then you go outside into your container. So if you remember that, if your local host, like your house, the local one, and then you go outside to the container, we're not going to worry about the container one for now, but we do need to specify both of them for the correct syntax. So I hope that makes sense, and that's just the way that I remember it. So if you remember, left is like the first one, and you're in your house, and then you go out to the container for the right side. Okay, so I'm going to open Commander up again. Just clear this stuff off, and we're going to do docker run -p. I think I should be good with port 80. Just to mention as well, if you've run this command previously, you'll have to specify a different port number because that port will already be taken. Actually, just before we do that, as maybe an interesting supplementary bit, we can do docker port ls, no such container, docker ports ls. Oh, okay, maybe not as a bit of supplementary. No such container ls, docker docker container port ls. Okay, not supplementary. I'm going to where's that? So let's just run this command and see if it works any better. So docker run -p, and what do we do? So inside our local house, so we're at home, so we do 80, and then we go outside, and then we do the port for the container, and then we need to tell Docker what image we want to use to build our container. Hit enter. It should say that it's going to check locally. Oh, what? Sorry. I've already got that, so I've run that. There's another command. I was confused then because I normally put if I do Control-C just to stop that. So now you're going to see, if I just try and run this again, I'll explain in a second what confused me. So if I run this again, I'm going to get an error. So Docker error response from daemon, driver failed, program external connectivity endpoint, blah blah blah, bind for 80. You can see 000080, whatever that says. Port is already allocated. So up on the keyboard, the up arrow, I'm just going to change that port to 81. But then I know this is not in the email, but this is what confused me. I think I do mention it later on. is that I normally run these commands in detached mode, so it leaves the console free to execute additional commands. If I want to hit enter for this, you'll see what I mean. As opposed to it just went to the next line, and it didn't look like anything was happening. That sort of caught me off guard. So if I hit enter now, you'll see that we get a container ID generated, and then controls return to the interface. And that means that we can do some other things, like we're free to type or whatever, just to like run other commands on our container if we want to. So we can do docker container ls and then C. So we've got 2 containers now that are being created. We should be able to see the ports. If you look down at the bottom here, you can see the first one, which was about a minute ago, used port 80, and this second one 24 seconds ago, port 81. So yeah, it's interesting. Generally you probably want to run them with the -D. There's no hard and fast rule, it just depends what you're doing. But for example now, and you might say, well, why does it matter? Because you're creating your container and that's it. But we can do things like, if we want to get inside the container and look at the directory structure, for example, then we can do something like docker exec-it. I'm not going to explain fully this command at the minute, but just to show you, you might want to run an additional command with the console freed up. So docker exec-it, and then we want our container ID, so we can do that and copy, so double click and then right click to copy it, or we can just get the first few unique numbers from the container ID. So we can put 042 and then we need to do a bash. This bash is for Windows as well, it might be different. You might have to type something slightly different. It will be bash still on a Mac, so that could be a little bit different there. And you can see now, look, if you notice what's on the terminal, so we've got root at this ID and then hash. So if I do an ls just to list the directory structure out, then that's not my local directory. This is the directory and the folders and files that are actually inside the container. That's as far as I'm going to go with that, to be fair. I probably might have confused things just sort of showing that. So to get out of there, we just do exit. I guess the main thing was just to show that you want to leave, as opposed to if you do that command without putting the -p on, then it leaves the console, the terminal tied up. So now if I try and type, I can't do anything. So -C to stop that, or to free up the console. Okay, I think that covers that. So what we did there was to pull the image, assign a port to our local host and the container, and we created an NGINX container on our local machine. If we go to now, just to confirm that everything worked, the next step is you open up your browser. I'm going to struggle with this possibly. So you're only going to be able to see part of the screen because I've got a custom size onto view. So local host, if I go to local host and then I type : so that's, and then we specify the port, and port 81 for me. You should be able to see a little bit of the screen at least. You can see that works. You probably got the commercial support available, and thank you for using NGINX. So if I go back to the email, you can see that, oops, this message here, or this image, this snippet, is what you should have seen once you went to the browser and opened up the website. So that's that. I hope that helped. Maybe I just confused you more. Hope not. So see you on day 7.